Well, hello! Today we have another exciting package from Eachine. Just before we get into it, a quick reminder, please like or dislike this video if you didn't like it. Comment down below, don't forget to subscribe, and if you can find it, click on the little bell icon. It's around here somewhere, it keeps moving, who knows. What have we got today? It is the Tyro69. Yes, it's another one, can you believe it? I didn't even get all the other Tyros, but I do feel they're getting better and better. So, started with the Tyro99. It was okay. I didn't particularly like a lot of components. You had to swap up a whole bunch out to make it work better. Then we had the Tyro, I think it was the 79, 3-inch type quad. Lot better components in it. Flew quite nicely. Liked that one. And most recently we had the Tyro 129, which I really liked. Came with a GPS, 7-inch blades, fly it for a long time, go far, all that. Config setup, pretty good. So it seems to be getting better and better. We hope it continues. So in the Tyro69, this is a 2.5-inch style quad. Again, it's you build it your own. Doesn't come with a receiver, so you need to do a little bit of work. Traditionally, the manual for it's been awful, and you've pretty much got a picture which tells you where the screws go, and then you have to figure it out from there. But let's open up and see what we've got. Inside the packaging, we have this single bag full of stuff. And I can see there's a unibody frame in the bottom and a bunch of stuff here. So I think it's best we stop looking at it like this. We'll go to close up, we'll see what we've got, and then we'll find out how to put it together. Okay, here's the box. Let's get that package out and see what's inside of it. Now, I've just had a look at the manual, and I've made fun of the manuals before for being poor. This one, I'm afraid, seems even worse. It doesn't even have a proper diagram of how the quad's built up. It's just, well, it's got some photos and then it's just pictures. So I'm hoping it's going to be straightforward enough that you know, everyone will be able to work it out. But we might have to do a little bit more in-depth looking at what we have to do here. So let's just see what we've got. So here's the little unibody frame. It looks like it's about 2mm. Maybe I'll measure that later, but it looks like space for a battery strap, space for the stack, and obviously the motors there. Here are the motors. Let's get one out and have a feel of those motor wires, because these motor wires have always been really quite nasty, hard, stiff wire, and yep, it's no exception today. These are 1104 8500 kV. I haven't actually looked at what you're supposed to run this on. I'm presuming it's 2S, maybe 3S on that kV, not sure. Then we've got the electronics. Wow, these bags are really hard to open. We've got the ESC board here. Runs BL Heli. It says 20 amp ESC there. Little capacitor on the end, and then we've got to obviously solder on the XT30 cable. This one looks like it's the flight controller. Yep, again, lots of sockets ready for this. It does actually have something on the manual that says do not forget to, well, it says weld here for the receiver type. You've got the S-bus or the PPM. Quite generous on the props. We've got 10 pairs by L-Dark, 65mm. Here's the camera. This is a Cadex Beetle, I believe it's called, which is kind of Cadex's all-in-one miniature camera and VTX. Not actually attached. Obviously the little board there is tiny, but it's all sort of plugged, so it looks like it's ready to at least just plug in there. This, looking at the photos, is what you sit the camera into, and perhaps the board behind there. A bunch of screws and risers, some really big ones here. I'm not sure if the idea is the large screws go all the way up the stack to the end or something. It wasn't obvious from the pictures. Another random bag of 2 screws and 2 nuts. Why wouldn't those be in this bag? What is this for? We don't know. Battery strap. This looks far too big for this quad. Let's have a look at it. Yep, that's massive. That's not good for this thing. Even if you put it around the whole frame, it's so big. And then you've got the XT30 connector, receiver, and that is going to be probably ESC board to flight controller board. So that is it. That is all our gubbins. Obviously the thing we need to provide here is our own receiver. I'm going to find an XM Plus somewhere to put in there. What we have to do now is try and work out how this all fits together, which I'll be doing piece by piece and giving you little snippets as I update it. So now we've unpacked everything and sorted stuff out, it makes a little bit more sense. Again, there should be better instructions than there are. What we've got in the bag of lots of screws is lots of these little M2 by something, I don't know, M2 by 3 or 4 mil. And obviously motors go there. Each of these set of 4 screws go in the motor. That sorts that bit out. These, looking at the length of them, will then go around poles there onto the ESC board, which we put on there, and obviously the XT30 will go on that bit. The way this appears to work, I think, is that we've got these really big screws here, and these screws go up these 4 holes, and then we've got these little sets of these rubber risers. There's no thread to them or anything, they're just basically cut rubber. Those will go on there like so. Then we'll have the ESC board go on like that. Then we'd have another set of these rubber things. Then the flight controller would go on. Then another set of the rubber things. Then this would go on. And finally we'd put the little hex nuts on. And so I believe what we've got here is some spares, just in case that goes horribly wrong. So what I'm going to do first off, I'm going to tin up all these motor wires. I'm going to do the same for the ESCs. Then I'm going to solder all those in. I'll do that without mounting that. I'll just make sure I go around this way so I can go sort of around the pole when it's going to go there. So I'll go back like that. And I'll put the XT30 connector on, and then I'll screw the motor wires and mount that on the frame. Do that bit first. Okay, so that's that little bit of soldering done. Not too bad to do. The only thing I'd note, and I've got the both sets of the little rubber things here and the tops on, so that's when I'm turning it over, doing the motor up, it's not all falling out again, is these aren't all precision cut, so they're not all the same length. Therefore that control board is, well, that's the ESC board, but the flight controller is not going to be perfectly level, but it won't be too bad. So just before I put the flight controller on and join it up with that little cable, what we need to do is one more bit of soldering. Well, there's 2 bits more of soldering, but one of which is soldering on my receiver, which is not quite the same. If we look, and it's so small on this board, we have got, you can just see these 3 tiny pads there. We need to join either those 2 together for S-Bus or those 2 together for PPM. This is finally in the manual, but it's still the rubbish manual, so we just need to basically make sure those have a blob of solder making a join there, and that will set it to S-Bus. Okay, so we've got the flight controller on, and we've got the little ESC connector from ESC to flight controller. So some of the other connections are obvious. Like this one I've plugged in, this is to the receiver, so I just need to put my receiver, cut that off, and basically put my receiver in. The question of the camera, this little Cadix Beetle thing, is a bit trickier. Obviously the camera is going straight into the VTX. The VTX is transmitting, it's got a little adapter here, but on here, written very small, apart from power and ground, we've got video. We seem to have video in, video out. So we've got 2 videos, and then we've got an RX, which is going to be controlled by smart audio. So camera wise, we've got a little label on here, so I'm assuming, this may be wrong, that's going to go in there, and then this is going to need to be, well, we're going to need the video out somewhere, because obviously a video comes in, we get our SD, and the video needs to go back out again, and this looks like it might go somewhere like here. And I only put this here because it says VTX on it, but this could be wrong. We're going to have to check that. But if that's right, that's video control there. What I'm going to do, because I'm not sure if this is right or not, is plug this in and basically just see if I get a picture. If I've got a picture, I'm off to a pretty good start, and I can worry about the rest of it afterwards. So there we go, we've got the top installed, quite fiddly to get in, and this just all friction fitted. I had the camera upside down to start with because it wasn't obvious which way it goes in. I'll show you what that looks like now if we plug in. Here's a handy camera, and you can see we're up the right way now. You can also see that we've got a little bit of writing there, so we've got the OSD going through. That bit seems good. Don't know if Smart Audio works yet. I'll have to install a receiver and see what happens there. I suppose the only thing I'd mention about the receiver is where am I going to put it? The question is, can I sort of sneak it under one of these or just shove it up against the end there and then have the antennas come out? I also called this in the introduction a 2.5-inch quad because that's what it said in the description. The fact it uses these 65mm props, it means in fact this is the Tyro Toothpick rather than the Tyro 2.5-inch, which is all good in my book. I love the Toothpick, and double checked it, it says 2 to 3S, so looking forward to putting some crazy amounts of power through. I have just noticed, despite my best efforts, I've managed to mount this in a way that I didn't intend to. Now I could change this around quite easily. It's a question of if you were going to slot the battery strap there, then obviously the battery would be sideways instead of lengthways. Not that that would be bad, but you could also just take the battery strap straight around there anyway. So I'm not particularly worried about that. But yeah, these should have been sort of facing forwards rather than the way I have it, but I don't think I can be bothered. Right, so yeah, I'm going to cut this, splice in a receiver, figure out where to put that receiver, and then we'll have another look. So let's connect into Betaflight and see what has been set up. Quads on the desk there, accelerator looks okay. Ports wise, we have got obviously the USB, we've got serial RX set up. I notice we do not have a smart audio set. It said the VTX supports smart audio, it hasn't been set, so I'm just going to try and set it, and what will happen is after I get through this one I'll test out and see if that actually works or not. Hopefully it will. Try and go back in. There we go. So configuration, normal props in, lots of them have props out. I'm not particularly bothered. I'm just going to change bits and pieces here and there while I'm doing it. I'll put motor stop on, 8K 2K loop. Too worried about that. Let's have a craft name in there. Minimum arming angle, I want 180 here so I can arm it anywhere. Very handy if you want to get yourself out of trees and stuff. Receiver's already said S-bus. I do not need soft serial. I do not need telemetry. Anti-gravity dynamic filter, that's all good. And let's have the RX set there. Yep, that bit looks good. Let's save and reboot that. Back in again. Power and battery. I'm not sure if this supports high voltage batteries, but I'm going to use it anyway. I'm going to take the warning and minimum down to city levels. Bit tuning. This looks pretty much default, so all I'm going to do is just up this for my super rate at 80, like that. It's only running 355. This is not particularly up to date. The receiver, I have taken this receiver out of another quad and just used the same number. So this should work. Let's have a look. Yep, that's cool. So I'm just going to bump in just a little bit on RC deadband because I've got my pitch sometimes flickering around. You can see aux12 is going up and down. That's because it's the RSSI channel, so I should make that the RSSI. The rest of it all looks good. Modes, I'm going to add my modes in, and it's going to be the normal ones. I'll come back to that because the bit I really want to sort out now is here in motors. Obviously we've just connected up as it goes, so they may well be running wrong. So what I'm going to do is just plug in a battery. Obviously I've got no props on, even on something this size, and what I'm just going to do is put my hand or my fingers just over the motor and feel to tell which way it's running. So motor 1's running the wrong way, so we need to change that. Motor 2 is the right way. Motor 3 is the right way. And motor 4 is the wrong way. Essentially they're all running anti-clockwise, so it kind of makes sense when you wire them up the same way. So we need to change that. OSD wise, that's it, just a warning, so I'll go back and change that. But what I'll do first is go and sort this out in BL Heli. Before I do that I need to disconnect from here, go into BL Heli, connect. We need the battery plugged in for this one. Say read the setup, and what I'm going to do is reverse
number 2 and number 3. Let's write the setup. Okay, disconnect from there. Go back into Betaflight, and I'm just going to confirm that that works okay. So motor number 1. That's running the wrong way still. Tell you what I've done. I've written down the I've written down the motors completely wrong. It was 1 and 4 I wanted to do, and I just did 2 and 3. Let's do that again. But this time, let's do it correctly. So, number 1 needs to be reversed, number 2 needs to be normal, number 3 needs to be normal, and number 4 needs to be reversed. That's better. Never a problem if you make a mistake, this sort of thing. You can just go back in and do it again. That's what I do anyway. So let's try that one more time. This is why you always go back and check it. Not that I made the mistake deliberately, but there you go. So let's try that again. That's better. That's going the right way. Number 2 is right. Number 3. Yep. Number 4. Yep, that's good. Sometimes you need to just hold on to it a little while and just have a look, because a little motor like this running across your hand can not feel particularly distinct. But anyway, let me unplug this. So the battery's unplugged. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to set up my modes and my OSD to something a little bit more normal than that. And yeah, then we'll come and show you what I did, and we'll take it out for a fly. So here's the finished product. After that Betaflight bit, I went and I tried some audio, and that was fine. The receiver, I've basically poked down there, come out and put the receiver thing in there. Really stiff wires again on these bits they got us, but nothing hits. Now I was going to swap this battery thing over, but I thought, you know what, I should try and at least use the original kit. What I did have to do is put in these sort of rubberized thing for trying to keep the battery straight, which weren't in the kit. Without that, stuff would be just sliding about. Also, once I worked out sort of my battery size, like this one here is a 300 milliamp hour Freestyle, what I did was I cut off the enormous amount of access, which is about this much extra battery strap, to try that. I'm still not happy with the battery strap, because it's never going to be as tight as I want it to. But, you know, it'll do. We've had just a quick hover here, and that seems absolutely fine. Motor's all running the right way. Push fit props go on okay. Nothing's getting snagged. You can see that things get quite close. But, yeah, everything seems to be safe enough. So let's take it out and try and fly it now. Okay, here we are ready to test. It's a bit of a weird day today. The sun's not there. It's not that it's not bright. Don't be fooled by the sunglasses though. My eyes are just very sensitive. It's all a bit diffused, so not great light. It'd be good to see what the camera can do. It's actually very windy today. I wanted to test some 5-inch quads, but already in the open field it's too blowy. You can kind of see the breeze knocking the trees around. This is a little bit more sheltered here, but it's going to be gale force all week, so I'm out with my little weather window to try and get this up and flying. We'll start on 2S, we'll move to 3S and see how it does, just going along here, going over the trees. Bit of an unknown quantity is this camera, really. I've not used a Beetle before. Let's see if it's got the red tinge that the EOS 2 is famous for. Hopefully not, we'll see. So up and away on the Maiden FPV flight, and I'm using a 300 milliamp hour high voltage 2-cell here. I thought I'd start with 2S, see how it flies, and initial impressions are very good. It seems pretty nippy, pretty smooth, but I did just catch, when I was just going up and did that roll, I thought actually that ground looks awfully dark when we did that, and you can see it again there. If we face the camera in the right or the wrong direction, depending how you look at it, you will see that the ground details go very dark. So yay, there's no red tinge on this little Beetle camera, but boo, it creates darkness on the ground if you face the camera towards the sky, which is not a great thing. But aside from that, I think it's actually flying really, really nicely. It kind of surprised me that this thing I just sort of cobbled together in an hour is actually flying really nice, and the sort of the default PIDs here seem to work really nicely on this battery. I did kind of think, what's this going to be like on FreeS? Because at the moment it's fairly quick, it's going fairly nicely, although I can hear just a little bit of a sort of, it's not an oscillation, it's not a vibration, there's this noise that comes from these props. They're so flexible that when you spin them up a bit quick, they flutter. This isn't doing it too much, but I could hear it when I was doing high throttle manoeuvres. And I was doing plenty of them, I was doing a couple of punches, things like that, to see how it does. Really, really nice, actually. I wasn't really wanting for power here, but again, I'm the person who's a little bit crazy on these toothpicks. I want to go absolute maximum as I can, which is why I bought 4 FreeS batteries with me. Now the VTX on this, I should mention, is locked down to 25 milliwatts. It won't do anything else, so we're limited there, but I think it's holding up quite well. You can really see the sort of darkening of the ground details here. This is what I don't like. And it kind of depends where you're going to fly. Obviously for me, where I'm up over trees, this is the worst possible situation. In an open field, it's not too bad, but be aware of that. This is not the world's greatest camera by any means. Anyway, I had a good little fly around on this one. Nice little flight. Did a couple of vague speed runs. Before I was temporarily invaded by some dog walkers, which was really weird because we're in a really out of the way area of the woods.
Okay.
Morning.
Hi.
Anyway, aside from that slightly strange interruption, I had a great little flight on 2S. Came down safely, just under 3.5 minutes on the battery, and that's me flying, not too restricted, doing plenty of punches and stuff, which I think is quite nice. So I flipped over to a FreeS high voltage battery, again 300 milliamp hours. The manual actually recommends something like 400 to 450, but 300 seems around the right sort of size for these things. Anyway, what I found instantly, I could hear this massive fluttering, and I wasn't sure, is this the PIDs, is this the props, is it a combination of the both? So I came down and I sort of did a rinse and repeat with tuning. So I'd land, do a bit of a PID tune. I was pretty much bringing down the P and the D in the roll and pitch, seeing what a difference that would make, and kept dropping that, doing some throttle attenuation. I didn't want to spend more than one battery of it because I wanted to fly it some more, and I felt I had it reasonably, although not exactly quite how I'd want it. So here I am on the third LiPo, again FreeS, and seems to be flying reasonably smoothly. I've still got a little bit of noise, actual noise that I can hear, but again I can't really tell if this is prop sort of situation, the flexibility of them, or it's a problem with the tune. I like the amount of power I'm getting from FreeS. It's back on sort of its crazy toothpick instead of just nice toothpick. However, on this first flight, or decent flight using FreeS, something went really weird here, and the quad decided it was going to try and kill me. Basically, I went up here, wasn't doing anything particular, I just went into a dive, pulled out of it, and then it just flipped out. Well, that was exciting in a dangerous way. It landed here, about this far away from me, which is about the closest I've ever had anything coming to hit me. I was thinking like maybe an ESC blew or something, but just looking at the quad, it seems to have thrown a prop and bent up 2 of the others. It makes me wonder if this can handle FreeS. These props, they are of the very soft variety, and those are wobbling a lot when we're flying, so it's hard to tune when you've got props wobbling around like that. We've got it flying reasonably on FreeS, but it flew a lot better on 2S, I have to say. But I'll replace those props and give it another go before I decide whether it's worth trying again, see if I can make them stay on this time at least. So I finished out that battery. I just want to show this again to show that darkening of the ground details, and that was working okay. They're push fit props, but they do seem pretty tight. I think it's the fact they can flex like that, which is letting them come out. Anyway, it was okay flying here again, but I decided what I maybe needed was a bit of a change of scenery to try something else out. So I picked up my stuff and I went to find somewhere else to fly. And this is what I found. This little track here had been used by the forestry workers, and it's still technically closed off, but you can kind of get there okay. And I thought it might be fun just to give a different type of flying rather than just in a like I want a less open area than I had. But I figured this is a fun thing to use this sort of machine for, just flying through some woods. Also want to see how well the little VTX there would hold up amongst the trees. I mean, we're not really going behind a lot of stuff, but it's only 25 milliwatts and it doesn't seem bad. Just a little linear antenna there. The whole thing is quite sort of small and compact, as you saw there. It's just that sort of single all-in-one unit, but kind of split apart. But yeah, this is a fun little area to fly. And what I'm doing here, it's actually quite nice having that track with the water. I mean, you don't really want the water there, but it's much easier to pick out than just grass. We search for little tree gaps, and then we really try to go for it. So going up and down here and basically trying to get faster. So I'm going lower, I'm trying to get faster. As you can see, we're not much percentage on the throttle, but we get a great impression of speed. Unfortunately, we can get taken out by a small branch. It's kind of bizarre that this thing managed to throw a prop on its own, because in these little crashes, and I put it down in little bits and pieces, and then I ran full on into things. I've never actually managed to do anything. I sort of bent a prop and it bent back, and then it was absolutely fine to fly after that. So in this sort of last half of the battery, this is the same battery that I just crashed on, I just tried to go a little bit out and around the trees, just to sort of find ways through. I thought it was quite an interesting thing to do. Again, it's another thing I like to do on quads, and in this sort of area I don't feel I could really do this very well on 5-inch, mostly because there's so many sticky out bits and it really hasn't got enough room for a quad, for me at least. I'm sure people at a higher skill level could really rip through here, but I prefer to take something with sort of less kinetic energy, because there's loads of little sticky out bits in these trees. But yeah, I had a great lot of fun just flying through this stuff. It was cool. And in the last battery, what I was trying to do is find if I could go a little bit further, because I wanted to see how the VTX would last. So I kind of found this vaguely straight road here, or path through the trees. The wind has got up even more at this point, so I'm now dealing with a quad that I'm not convinced is tuned all the way, props that are bending, and quite a strong wind really gusting around, blowing me around, so it doesn't make for a very smooth ride. But I think you get a fairly decent impression that you can fly this fairly far. I mean, I'm not going particularly far, but I'm pretty sure this VTX will hold up quite nicely actually. It doesn't seem to be breaking up or having any particular problems, even going along down here relatively close to the floor. Aside from that, I have to say this is a bit of a boring flight. I was doing some sort of runs close to the floor and that, and trying to find some little bits around the trees, but not very exciting. I think I preferred the previous point where I was going through the trees and stuff, but I'm trying to just mix it up a bit, have something a bit different.
So, the little Tyro69, what do we think of this? Well, I liked it, and there's certain aspects of course that I didn't like about it. The whole thing came together pretty quickly. You can build it in less than an hour, longer if you're trying to mess around and showing how to put bits together and stuff like that. The unibody frame, the motors, the two boards, that works really well. They had a couple of dodgy bits in the kit, like the big old battery strap, the lack of any sort of friction or resistance thing on the bottom so you can mount your battery, and of course you will need to supply your own receiver and battery. Wasn't sure about the Calyx Beetle. I'm glad that the colour's good. It's not got the normal Calyx EOS 2 tinge of redness, but you saw when we were going up and pointing into sunlight, the bottom darkened out. you know, it's built to a price, but be wary if you're flying in similar areas to me where you need to see below. If you're in a field and you're just spinning around and having fun like that, it's not going to make that much of a difference. But in certain situations, it's trickier to fly in, obviously. Little VTX, that held up pretty well. It's only 25 milliwatts. The smart audio implementation works absolutely fine. The manual sucked royally. I don't know why they don't get someone to write a decent manual for them. It's just terrible. I mean, I've built lots of quads before. I can figure it out. I still think this is kind of aimed towards like the first time builder, in which case I think we need a little bit more hand holding, or at least just like a diagram to say this goes here, this goes here. Put it, get sort of an exploded picture to show how all the bits go in. Just something like that would really give help. It's really a little bit lacking, and it's a bit. It feels a bit lazy. They could just put an extra couple of days effort in to get the manual right, and then people would really be into this. So I really like toothpicks. Just recently on my channel we had the iFlight. I've done loads with the Sailflight X. I built my own one for 4S, the curry pick. And we've got this one over here, the other Eachine Red Devil. Now I mention those ones because this is the cheapest toothpick I've seen, but you do need to supply a battery and the receiver. That brings it up to a similar price to something maybe like the Red Devil or the Sailflight, although I should mention that on the Sailflight I've changed out an awful lot. I've changed the receiver, I've now changed the camera and the VTX. That's coming up in a video next week. And back in the Red Devil, I really want to change the receiver out. So at least if you're coming this way, you can put a decent receiver in to start with. You might want to change that camera though. It's a bit weird. But the only real serious problem I had with it is flying it on 3S. 2S, it was absolutely fine, and I think it flew really nicely. But I couldn't figure out why this didn't translate to 3S. And I think it's down to these props. These are so flexible. What I did, I dug out a few other props to compare. And I can't be very scientific about it. I can just sort of put it between my fingers and look about how it flexes. What I notice is these ones, and these I think are the L-Duct props supplied with it. These seem to flex all the way through. It's so easy to do the whole thing. If I look at these ones that are onto the Sailfly, which aren't too dissimilar, quite flexible again, but they kind of don't bow over so much. And then I've got these ones. These are the HQ props, which are on the iFlight, and these are way different. There's not as much bend in them at all, so maybe it's a case of like replacing them. So I think my guilty secret with all quads and me flying them is I'm both not a particularly good tuner, and nor do I like to do it. I know there's guys that like to go out there and they put battery through and battery through and battery through, refining their tune just a little bit at a time, getting it absolutely perfect. For me, I'm kind of like, is it flying okay? That's good enough for me, because essentially I want to go out there and have fun and not have to bother with it. So some of those wobbles are probably from me not giving it the best tune, but I do feel that a lot of it comes from the fact that these props are just so wobbly. There's a lot of, as these spin up, these flutter around, and of course this makes it shake a bit. Some of that you can take out with tuning, but I'm pretty sure some of what we're left with on that shaky there is these props, and the 3S really does bring it out more than the 2S would. So perhaps I'll follow up, I'll try and put some HQ props on and see if we get a massive difference on there. But it's just to be aware of. Hopefully, you know, perhaps someone will come out with the perfect tune for this, and then I won't have to make the effort and I'll just put it on there and see how it goes. But I think certainly a consideration there is you might want to really fly on 2S rather than 3S. And I'm a big proponent of like crazy, I loved flying this on 3S because it's just so mad. I like the madness, the sort of hanging on for dear life. But on this it's just too shaky. I found, and maybe 2S is the way. I mean, I've got it reasonable, but I think there's still some work to do. Anyway, overall, a pretty decent quad with, you know, some quirks and problems, but a really good price. And if you're thinking of building for the first time, this is fairly easy to put together, just a couple of soldering bits, and the rest of it plugs in and you're good to go. Anyway, this has been the Eachine Tyro69, kindly supplied for review by Banggood. Thanks to Banggood. And of course there'll be links down below for where you can see it on the Banggood website. I hope that's been helpful. I hope to be back with some more on this soon, and I'll catch you next video. Bye for now.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.